welcome here to the home of the Undisputed Champion and of course Ferrari's biggest fan. As I'm sure you guys have enjoyed it summer 2025, have you? I hope that you guys did, because now, of course, after coming from, some wonderful holidays that you will soon see on this exploding YouTube channel of ours, it is time for the final 10 races of the Formula 1 season. And here we will introduce, the track that will start off this marathon towards the Yas Marina circuit, where we've been many times in Abu Dhabi, where the new, probably very likely drivers and maybe the all new, or maybe the legendary new constructors champions will be crowned. And that circuit, of course, here is the Zandvoort circuit, which we won't see for many years to come. It is hosting around 15 of the championship, as you can see on that lovely designed Formula 1 2025 season calendar behind me. And we will tell you everything about this race. Also, we will take a look at some of the latest news. We will take a look at how the track looks like and just how successful Scuderia Ferrari has been, even though that was before that kind of a brief return in this 21st century from 2021 that Zandvoort made, of course. We will then take a look at who will be our main competitors and what kind of results exactly we are looking for, which I'm sure we are looking for finally some Scarlet victories, right? That's right. And then we will take a look at also how successful I have been here, because as you do know, of course, I've raced this circuit before, but I only raced it once because obviously for the ground effect era, you could have seen the last race, that major tussle I had with that home favorite who, sometimes doesn't play according to the rules. Yeah, so what to tell you, at the time of the recording, you can tell that clearly, Formula 1, has kind of heavily departed for the holidays. And there is, not many more, news. Obviously, it is quite clear that the 2026, preparations are revving up. You can see, for example, drivers like Lewis Hamilton, really going for it, right? Really kind of, trying to maximize, his experience and give, for example, Scuderia Ferrari, the best ideas, so that, we can be really competitive and, we can be dominating, as there will be obviously lots of changes to the powertrain units, to the engines, to the batteries, as well as to the overall aerodynamics, of the car. But yeah, overall, it's kind of a quiet summer, I would say. Probably, not many driver moves, as well, as most of the drivers are locked up. You probably did notice, for example, that, there could have been some changes with the current reigning world champion, but they all stay in put, unlike, of course, his boss, who, unceremoniously, got, was moved aside, before or after the British Grand Prix. So in terms of the news over here, not much obviously is happening, especially as all of the factories usually shut down. So it will be interesting to see when we re-emerge, because for us, I think, Scuderia Ferrari, there has been a big push. You've probably seen, that interview with John Elkann, who's he's obviously the chairman of the Ferrari, even though not really belonging directly, to the Ferrari lineage, being more from, that wealthy Agnelli family, obviously, of Italy. And yeah, I do agree, with the fact that we should really take, especially these final 10 races, as kind of, the 10 finalists to really, even though 2026 is coming, we shouldn't give up on 2025. We are second in the Constructors' Championship. It will be very difficult to overhaul McLaren, but you never know. The driver's order can change a lot. Just look at how the mighty Red Bull has fallen to, what is hardly a point-scoring car. Of course, in the Drivers' Championship, there is a lot to fight for. We definitely do not want to stay 5th and 6th, and there are some really good improvements. I do believe that it was probably a misjudgment to go for the different kind of that pull rod instead of the push rod suspension, which clearly is the source of a lot of the problems that we had also in Hungary, because as you do know, sometimes it's obviously a lot of the cars, right? You always try to maximize the performance. So in order to maximize the performance, it is very important that you do not leave any performance benefits on the table. So that is why, for example, as Scuderia Ferrari, we sometimes decide to run the cars very low, slow, right? To, for example, underfuel them, to make sure, to again go for the optimal strategy. But it can happen, that obviously you are sometimes, on the verge of, that legal limit, just like all of the cars are. And I believe, from Hungary, we've gotten a really good idea of what to do, because that could have, I believe, easily have been our first victory over here. And, that would have propelled us, I think, to many, many more victories to come, because, here the Zandvoort is actually very similar like the Hungarian ring. And because of the similarities, so lots of, for example, short bursts of acceleration from one turn to the next, and long straight, where you can obviously overtake. If we, once again, we will be able to run, for example, lower downforce and be able to challenge for the pole position like Charles Leclerc did, like I'm sure Lewis Hamilton will be very keen, to show us that he's got that 7th time, just like Michael Schumacher, world champion speed, then anything is definitely possible. And after that, you can see the Monza is coming up, where obviously I'm pretty sure, we will get a 1-2, that will be our track. And then, you're going to Baku, you're going to Singapore, and obviously Leclerc has always been on pole in Baku, and in Singapore we were a bit unlucky with qualifying last year, no such shenanigans. And remember, as you can see from many videos that we recorded in Singapore, this is the place where Ferrari always wins! That's right. And after that, obviously we won in United States, we won in Mexico, in Brazil, for example, drivers like Felipe Massa, for example, has been winning a lot in Brazil. So you can see that, and Las Vegas, obviously, ever since Las Vegas was introduced, we've always seemed to be the fastest car, just haven't quite converted it into the victories, for various reasons in 2023 and 2024. Qatar and Yas Marina will probably be challenging for us, but overall, it's definitely time to turn the page. So at least the next 8 out of 10 races, we can definitely win them all. So that's why, there is a lot of optimism, and it would be great, to see us go on a winning run, because, again, for me, what's also great, is that all of these 10 races, they are run in exactly the same configuration, including the sprint races that we had last season in 2024. So no such shenanigans, that, for example, sometimes it is the Hungarian Grand Prix, but you see the Belgian Grand Prix, and vice versa. So this time, we will start with race introduction 24 hours before the free practice 1, and then free practice 1, that will be our hot lap with the F124 cars for the ultimate speed, and then with the new F125 hot lap for free practice 2, happening here in Zandvoort, of course, to see how the drivers will have to tackle that track this year. Then we will go for a red hot lap, so that you can see, my fastest lap from a competitive weekend, and then we will go to the qualifying, probably gonna look up all pole positions, right? And of course, then we're going to go to the Grand Prix uninterrupted with the exclusive, final lap, that you can see how I'm fighting for the victories, then the pure natural celebration, and then the race reaction, and of course the race reaction, proper to the Formula 1 race will come 24 hours after the race. So I really hope you will enjoy this, wish, they didn't change, the calendar that much, but yeah, since we have no more news, to tell you over here, we will at least tell you what will be happening. And when there are sprints, obviously we will then push the hot laps, and the race introduction 1 lap forward to, of course, always accommodate it, so that when even a sprint qualifying or a sprint is happening, you see it at exactly right time. So you will be very excited about it, right? That's right, and hopefully you will see me, challenging obviously for the 4th Formula 1 world title. I'm getting very, very close, and in order to do that, I should probably win, one of the tracks that I still haven't won, which is the Zandvoort circuit. So over here, as I will be racing in with the Ferrari SF1000T818 Formula 1 Racing Simulator, let me turn around this beautiful Scuderia Red Retina iMac to show you how the Zandvoort looks like. So everybody, this is Zandvoort. Okay, which will be on the calendar from 2026 onwards, because I think people can see that somebody is not dominating anymore. So yeah, with regards to the Zandvoort, so we will obviously show it to you in these hot laps. How exactly to drive it. There is a banky turn that leads you here to that long straight with a DRS. Let's enjoy it. In 2025, because in 2026 it will be slightly different. And there is this first corner Tarzan. We will show you how to tackle it. This is where I lost that maiden victory, right? I was leading on the final lap of the race and got pushed up by Verstappen. Very unlucky, but it wasn't penalized. It is not a challenging corner. I would say. But it's definitely overtaking opportunity, especially if you can dive up the inside. This good reprofile section with turns 2 and then 3, really bank it, so you really have to attack it. It's actually quite enjoyable, I have to say, when you race it with the Ferrari SF1000T818 Racing Simulator. And then this is all flat out over here, but very, very narrow, so pretty much overtaking is impossible unless Verstappen does some crazy move like he did, for example, on Hamilton in that blind turn 4 in Hungary. Some of the corners like here, the turn 7, 8 going to the 7th gear. I'll show you, how to master it. It's really important to be brave. This also should be it's actually a double apex turn. Here, this, turn, obviously, 8 is quite challenging, as well. And then you actually will, attack it at 7th gear, 6th gear, then you go to like the 3rd gear over here, very, very slippery. This section of the track, Zandvoort being located close to the beach house, obviously is greatly explained here in the Ferrari.com website, means that it is quite slippery through here. But if you can get on the power quickly to that 2nd DRS zone, that will obviously help you out a lot. And then here, from the 7th, 8th gear, you gotta really decelerate very, very fast through the gears, and then, move it to the 3rd gear, have the car rotate, around still, hopefully in the 3rd gear, and then you go here to the final corner, which you attack from 7th gear, 5th gear, quick flick, to the right, especially with F124 cars. It works great. And you go on a banky turn. The degree of the banking is about 19, so it allows you to pretty much just put your foot down, and obviously due to the force of gravity, the cars will just accelerate, and it provides a great overtaking opportunity. Here we can see the race will run over 72 laps, and yes, the lap record holder is Lewis Hamilton from that first 2021 race, 1:11. Well, I can go below 70 seconds over here, and yes, this is how it looks like. So it's definitely not one of the most beautiful tracks, but it's one of the newest tracks. It reappeared on the Formula 1 calendar mostly due to the success of that Flying Dutchman. But for Scuderia Ferrari, actually it has quite a important place in the Formula 1 history, because it was one of the staples of the championship ever since 1952. We've won here 8 times, mostly thanks to legends like Ascari, Iki or Lauda, for example. We've been on pole 7 times, 10 times on a podium, 10 fastest laps, 18 times on a podium. So we definitely due to be on a podium, but usually that happened well into the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s. So it is time into 2020s to bring some great results, right? Of course. And over here, everybody, so these are the statistics, about obviously Zandvoort for Scuderia Ferrari. So quite a successful track, but recently, obviously, we are still, waiting for the breakthrough. These are the drivers that we will be competing against. So over here, this is the Drivers' Championship, the 2025 season. So and nobody has in the end received any penalties or anything. So the Drivers' Championship is as follows. So Oscar Piastri is leading with 284 points, 9 points from Lando Norris, his McLaren teammate, and 275 points. Third is Max Verstappen, almost 100 points behind the leading young Australian on 187 points. And then we have 4th place is George Russell for Mercedes, 172 points. Fifth is our very own Monegasque Prince Charles Leclerc for Scuderia Ferrari, 151 points. It would be great if we could jump Russell, which would happen if Russell obviously didn't finish. Again, let's hope we will be competitive over here, but we definitely want to get close to the Russell. So after the Italian Grand Prix, we can be ahead of him and get very close to Verstappen as well. Because the main goal should really be to try to after the Italian Grand Prix, when the 2/3 of the season are finished, we should be able to be 3rd in a championship. Then we would still have the outside chance for a world championship. 6th, Lewis Hamilton for Ferrari, 109 points. We hope obviously that he will have strong results. It would be great if he could finally get the first Grand Prix podium over here. He's got 2 from the sprints with a victory and the 3rd place, and that would be really helpful for his confidence, as obviously he needs to close up the gap to Leclerc and go with Leclerc and overtake especially Russell and Verstappen, which who are the main objectives for the next few races. 7 is then Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Mercedes, 64 points, and 8 Alexander Albon Williams, 54 points. 9 Nico Hülkenberg Kick Sauber, 37 points. 10 Esteban Ocon Haas, 27 points. 11 Fernando Alonso Aston Martin, 26 points. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets ahead of his old nemesis teammate Ocon into the top 10 where he should be. 12, Lance Stroll, Aston Martin, 26 points. 13, Isaac Hadjar, Racing Bulls, 22 points. Then we have 14, Pierre Gasly, Alpine, on 20 points. 15 is Liam Lawson, the Racing Bulls, over there on 20 points. 16, Carlos Sainz Williams, of course 16 points. Let's hope for his sake, former Ferrari driver, he won't go to 17th place and 17 points, because on form 17, Gabriel Bortoleto kicks over on 14 points. He might be likely the reigning F2 champion to score another great result, since Zandvoort is really similar to Hungary. 18, Yuki Tsunoda, Red Bull Racing, 10 points. You know, we don't see him, maybe it's a really where he will finish the season, which will he continue in Formula 1? It's, you know, kind of bittersweet to see him doing so badly, but kind of expected. 19, Oliver Berman has 8 points. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets ahead of Tsunoda. And 20th, Franco Colapinto, despite his crash. That's, I guess, the biggest F1 news so far of the summer season during the Pirelli test, because there was a Pirelli testing of the 2026 stars. He will be in the Alpine cockpit. He's on 0 points. Jack Doohan, Alpine, also on 0 points, but he won't be going anywhere because he won't be racing. Obviously this weekend. So this is the driver's table, and here we have the 2025 constructors table. So McLaren leading it with 559 points. Second is obviously Scuderia Ferrari with 200. We should have 60 points, and then third, the Mercedes, 236 points. So definitely, I think we can easily extend the gap to Mercedes, and it will be all about really getting more points each weekend than McLaren and see, because I do believe that McLaren's will crash at one point or another, which can, you know, give us, for example, an easy 1-2, and, you know, that's still over 40 points, you know, that we could make up in 1, 2, possibly 3 weekends. So despite the fact that we are having hardly half of the points of McLaren's, again, in these 3 weekends, you could make up 120, 130 points. There are also 3 sprint weekends still coming up, as you know. So lots of points on offer, and, you know, if you outscore them by 10 points, you know, each weekend, you know, we could be heading to Yas Marina in Abu Dhabi for the final Grand Prix once again, with Constructors Championship on the line. So over here for the fourth, Red Bull Racing, 194 points, not even 200 points. That's where they're gonna stay for the rest of the season. Firmly believe that. Fifth is Williams, 70 points. Sixth, Aston Martin, 52 points. 7, Kick Sauber, 51 points. 8, Racing Bulls, 5 points. 9 has 35 points. 10, Alpine, 20 points. Everything to play for, I would say, from the 5th place onwards, because you can see with Aston Martin having such a strong weekend, all of a sudden, you know, they shot up from being almost, you know, penultimate, you know, just ahead of the dead last Alpine, who still have 20 points, which is amazing, to suddenly, you know, being just few points from Williams, who are in the top 5 rather surprisingly. So this is the constructors table. You know, definitely we don't want to just stay second. We want to be aiming for the championships, and this was the drivers table. And over here you can see the Zandvoort circuit. So you might be wondering, how did I fare over here? Well, not so well in qualifying. ASEAN Smalingsan champion, obviously, you know, I qualified 20th over here, so, you know, I will be, you know, definitely aiming to put it on pole position over here. You know, I did set the fastest lap, you know, by a couple of thousandths of a second, which was quite amazing, you know, in that really, you know, enjoyable, really great race, you know, that we had last year in the 2023 season that I was doing. But, you know, I lost the race on the final lap, so, you know, I finished second, you know, so that's kind of my result, and we definitely aiming for pole position. We have a fastest lap, so we know we will have a very good race pace, you know, because again we are able to extend the stint of the tires, and I'm sure we will be going for a victory, which will then basically, you know, only leave, you know, Monaco, and yeah, then pretty much, you know, Baku as, and of course Las Vegas as the track that I haven't won, you know, here on the calendar. You know, with Baku, that's gonna be a challenge. Las Vegas, I'm very, very confident for it, and, you know, if we can win over here, you know, there are 5 tracks that I still haven't tasted the victory at. There will be 4 more to go. Obviously, for one, the Monaco, we will have to wait, hopefully not for the remainder of our career, you know, but once, you know, we will find the pace there. I guess I gotta have, you know, some afternoon tea with Charles Leclerc and discuss what makes him so unbeatable at his home track. then we will be the ultimate champion, winning on all of the tracks. And I hope you will enjoy the racing weekend over here. So that was the introduction. We will see you again, if there will be any bigger news. But since everybody is on holiday, all I can say is you guys, enjoy the holidays, obviously, or the last, few days of it, because, the Grand Prix racing, is restarting over here in Zandvoort. There will be only 2 more times that we will be going over here. So, let's set, some historical times over here, so that they stay there for many, many years, engraved in that sand historical table that is out on the outskirts of Zandvoort, which hosts round 15 of the 2025 Formula 1 Championship, the Dutch Grand Prix. It was my pleasure to introduce it to you in our special F125 fashion. Let me know how you think your favorites, especially how Scuderia Ferrari will do. We are going to go for a victory. Let's go. Let's see what will happen. And let's bring some shiny Formula 1 Grand Prix winner trophies home to Monza, which is coming up in less than 10 days.